Well, Genex Power, a listed company, receives a boost today from the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility. That's the federal government's fund that was set up to try and boost infrastructure in Northern Australia. Now, this facility, it's a concessional loan for up to $116 million to support stage 2 of Genex's Kidston project. The company's Executive Director, Simon Kidston, joins us live from Brisbane for more on this. Simon Kidston, thanks very much for joining us. Now, just to clarify from the beginning, you did take over this mine. It was named after your, what, great-great-grandfather?
Yes, my great-great-grandfather was the Premier of Queensland back in 1906. The gold mine that was developed there was named after the Premier. So it is coincidental that more than 100 years later, that my colleagues and I acquired the owner, Barrick Goldfields from Canada, and acquired the project. Yeah,
exactly. So it didn't actually, it wasn't named after you, but nonetheless, it's great. Now, you are focusing very much at Genex on really generating and storing renewable energy. Just before we talk about the loan facility, you are developing this renewable energy hub in North Queensland. It's around the former Kidston gold mine. Tell us a bit about that.
So the strategy is to build this renewable energy hub by repurposing all of the infrastructure that was left behind from the gold mine. So we're utilising a substation, a transmission line, the workers' accommodation camp, and there's also 2 enormous holes in the ground, and that's absolutely ideal to develop our pump storage hydro project. It saves a massive amount of capex in the construction of the projects.
Wow, that's an extraordinary sort of repurposing, I think we call that, don't we? So, but when is this renewable energy hub, when's it going to be operational, and what are you actually going to put there? You say pumped hydro?
The first stage was developed last year. We built the 4th largest solar farm in Australia on this site. It's 50 megawatts, and that project was completed on time and within budget. The second stage is the integrated pump storage hydro, which is our giant water battery, which is integrated with an expanded solar farm. And our intention is to complete the funding this calendar year with construction next year.
Yeah, okay. So tell us about what you got from the NAIF, the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility, because this is the federal government's, what, $5 billion fund. I think you're only about the 3rd allocation that they've given out, and of course we've heard about them looking at the Adani mine and whether they would loan them money for the rail, but you actually got some money out of them.
We did. So this is a very significant part of our funding mix, $516 million.
For the stage 2?
For stage 2 will fund essentially the lion's share of the project development costs, and that funding is important because it's concessional in terms of a long-term loan, but also concessional in terms of interest rates. And the reason why they provide concessional funding is this project has benefits beyond that of the project. It provides benefits to the Queensland grid, which has been recognised in their funding assessment.
Like what sort of benefits?
We provide grid stability. So with renewables, obviously, they only work when the sun's shining or the wind's blowing. Our project can store surplus energy and deliver that energy when it's required. But also the nature of the turbine machines means that they provide grunt or torque to the transmission network, which makes the grid more stable for the benefit of everyone on the grid.
So are you saying that you can give guaranteed power supply because of your storage when and if it's needed?
That's right. It's a giant water battery, so we can store 2,000 megawatt hours of energy, and we can release that energy at times when there's an energy shortfall. That typically occurs in the morning or the evening when demand for energy is higher, and of course that doesn't always correlate with when the wind's blowing and the sun's shining. So we can provide dispatchable renewable baseload energy by dispatching the energy on command.
And when will you be able to provide that by?
So we're starting construction next year, and there's a 3-year build for the hydro project. So we'll be delivering this project energy into the grid in 2021.
Yeah, well, there's quite strict conditions on you from the NAIF, aren't they? What are they, and can you meet them?
We can certainly meet them. So one of the things that we'll be doing is having a very strong Indigenous engagement strategy. That's a very, very important part of the funding mix. But there's a number of credit type elements which we're also doing in concurrent with that, and that's primarily to do with securing long-term energy offtake arrangements to provide the cash flow certainty the NAIF requires or needs to provide the loan.
Yeah, so you also have to raise some of your own money, don't you?
That's right. So we, for Stage 1 project, Genex raised that money on the stock exchange. We own that 100%. Our intention for Stage 2 is to bring in a project partner at the joint venture level, and that will defray a significant amount of the equity requirement that we'll be investing into the project. All
right, so you won't be trying to raise any money through existing shareholders?
Look, we believe that Genex should retain a 50% interest in the project. We expect to get a significant free carry for the risk and the time and the effort we've taken to bring the project to financial close. If we need to raise a small amount of money, we can certainly do that to maintain that target interest rate.
All right, now the NAIF loan, it's the $516 million. You have to pay that back, don't you?
That's right, it is a loan, so we repaid that back, and that's a core part of their funding assessment, that the project can stand up on its own 2 feet and is capable of servicing the loan in full, both principal and interest.
Yeah, so look, it is a really interesting project. Just back to the actual project and why you decided to go with a former gold mine, use some of its existing infrastructure and repurpose it, and why you're so strong in renewables.
So by utilising this infrastructure that was just left there, we acquired this project for $1. But with that, we get essentially $500 million of head start in terms of capital cost savings. So that alone is very, very significant. The other important element is the project has an existing environmental authority, and we know that developing projects in Australia can be tied up with environmental approvals. That has been significantly mitigated in this case because we're repurposing an old gold mine, which obviously has been significantly disturbed in the past. So the activities that we're doing on site, if anything, enhance the environmental aspects of the development and don't cause any harm to the environment.
All right, so does that mean you have sort of reached you've breached the hurdles that might have been there for environmental regulatory processes?
Well, one of the problems with mines, when they finally do close down, someone's got to look after them and maintain them so they don't cause any future harm. By having a sustainable cash flow on this site, there's the funding required to maintain the site and keep it in good order for the next 100 years. So that's something which I think can be done at other mine sites, to repurpose them, to think innovatively and have alternative uses post-mine life.
All right, it's a most interesting project. Simon Kidston, Executive Director at Genex Power. Thanks so much for joining us from Brisbane.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Well, that is it for Trading Day for the moment, but we do continue right after this break. I'll be back with you. Straight after the break, I'll be speaking with Jack Lowenstein, the Chief Investment Officer at Morphic Asset Management, but also we've got Andy Penn joining us very shortly at that Telstra Investor Day, and also I'll be speaking with Trade Minister Steve Ciobo at 3:30, so do stay with us right through the afternoon.
You're watching Sky News.